Hey everybody, John Granato from The Bench, mornings on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5, and that's AJ Hoffman from The Blitz, afternoons on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5. Please hit subscribe so that you get all our content here on SportsMap HOU. Lindor, 10 years, $341 million. This complicates things for Correa. Okay, so Tatis is 14 years at $340, which is $24 million a year. Lindor's $34 million a year. Where's Correa fit into this thing?
I don't know that this should complicate things. That's like saying, well, Mike Trout's contract complicates things for George Springer. They're not the same thing. Carlos Correa is not Francisco Lindor. He's not a guy who's out there every game, every year. He hasn't been as consistent of a contributor even as Francisco Lindor. I don't understand it. I don't understand why Carlos could possibly think Francisco's contract is any sort of a starting point for his, because Lindor's a better player than Carlos. He's done more in this league than Carlos has. So if I'm the Astros, I'm standing firm and saying, listen, whatever the Mets want to do, that's on them. We don't view this as that type of a negotiation, and if you do, then it may be time for him to go be a free agent.
You know what's funny though, is you say that Carlos has won a World Series. Their OPS is identical, 833, both OPSs. The difference is Lindor misses 6 games a year. Carlos misses 50. No, literally 50 games a year.
Yeah, and you say 6 games a year. He had one season where he went on the 15-day DL. And basically every other year it's 1 or 2 rest days. I mean, this is a consistent guy.
Yeah, no. I agree wholeheartedly. But if I'm his agent, and plus a new agency, William Morris, is good, that they're trying to get more and more into the sports game. They can't take $22.5 million or $23 million for Carlos when Lindor signed it for $34. They just can't do it. So not only does it complicate it, it almost makes it impossible. And Carlos says he's not negotiating into the season. Now, if they come up with $30 million at 3 games into the season, Carlos is going to say, yeah, I'll take that. So I'm not sure about that's not. I don't think that's hard and firm, but I don't know. I don't know. I think this is almost an impossible situation for the agent and for the Astros.
I really think the Astros are reaching the point. If that's really what Carlos believes, if Carlos believes he should be somewhere near what Francisco Lindor is making, I think it's a tough decision to make, but the right decision to make for the Astros is good luck to you, man, because you haven't been on the field enough. And the Astros, if Carlos leaves, the Astros still have a core of players to build around. It's not the end of the world. Carlos Correa is not like... He's not the bottom Jenga piece and everything just collapses when Carlos Correa, who plays 100 games a year, leaves. They still have a core of guys here that they can build around with reasonable contracts and continue to build a reasonable team. But overpaying Carlos Correa and just because you've got, Verlander's money comes off the books and Greinke's money comes off the books. If you overpay Carlos Correa, how do you rebuild your pitching staff? There's just a lot of things that I don't like the idea of paying him that kind of Lindor money because he's not that guy.
No, I think because this core was Springer and Bregman and Altuve and Correa that, you lost Springer, so you have. No, you don't have to sign Correa. You don't. You're right. Because now if you were going to pay him $22 million, you got that $22 million that you could give to. There's another player out there that you can move Bregman to short or keep Bregman and get another shortstop in here, a good player in here, or bring somebody or draft well or whatever the case may be. No, you're right. You don't have to pay Carlos Correa, but after the postseason. Now, I think everybody doesn't remember his regular 60-game season last year. All they remember is the postseason. That totally changed the narrative from rib injury guy that couldn't hit to, played pretty damn well, but then didn't play well again, but then was postseason hero last year. I think we're all misremembering Carlos's career here. It has been really, really up and down.
I remember a conversation you and I had when Carlos was a rookie, and we were talking about who would you take from this day going forward over Carlos Correa. And at the time, you said Mike Trout, which lets you know, like, most people thought that Carlos Correa had this unlimited potential. Most people thought Carlos Correa was going to be a 35, 40 home run a year guy. I said, man, what if he a good comp for him would maybe be Nomar Garcia-Parra? And someone said, dude, that's a slap in Carlos Correa's face. Now that you've seen 5-6 years of this, like, I think the expectation was so great that he was never going to meet it. But the truth is, Carlos has been a good, not great player for the Astros. Like, in a good year, Carlos is going to hit 20 home runs. That's not what we thought he was. So if a lot of people are still holding on to what they thought Carlos could be, we've seen 5-6 years of this now. What Carlos is much more likely the real Carlos than what we thought he was 5 years ago.
Yeah, I think he's going. Listen, he could have a huge year and play all the games and really change the narrative. I don't think it's a bad narrative. I think he's good. I think he's this. We've seen places where he's the 7th ranked shortstop in baseball right now. But don't forget, Seager's going to be out on the market. Story's going to be out on the market. Lindor's off the market now. Tatis is off the market now. But he's not. If he has a bad year, and with the injuries, and if God forbid he gets injured again, I think they're taking a hell of a chance. They're playing chicken here, and they could come up big losers.
And who? I mean, at this point, who do you think has more real upside, Carlos Correa or Alex Bregman? I still think it's Alex Bregman. I'm looking at last year as more of an aberration of what we've seen from Alex Bregman. And if Carlos Correa, what we've heard is Carlos Correa wants to be paid more than Bregman, I'd be much happier paying Bregman what he's making and finding someone else to fill third base or short, whatever, and not overpaying for Carlos, because I think Alex Bregman has more upside. I think the new core of this team being Altuve, Bregman, Tucker, Alvarez is just as good of a starting point as what you've got if you keep Correa. That's the way this works. You can't hold on to guys forever. And sometimes you make that mistake. A lot of teams make that mistake of, this guy's the face of our franchise, we've got to hold on to him. The Reds did it with Joey Votto. They're like, we can't let Joey Votto walk. He's the face of our franchise. Then they pay him all this money, and now Joey Votto stinks. That's the worst way to build your team. At some point, you have to set nostalgia aside and say, we've got to trust in what our next crop of guys is going to do, and trust that we can build a team around them.